Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gaurav Batra. I'm founder of CyberFred, an enterprise risk management community. We are doing a lot of sessions, training, education, and knowledge sharing across the cybersecurity fraternity. Under CyberFred, we have come up with the specific brand or a different proposition which we call the CXO Junction. So this is a platform where we bring enterprise security leaders to interact and discuss about the evolving cybersecurity scene and risk management, of course, along with our partners, where we discuss or bring the latest challenges or the latest technologies which are there and what the industry experts or the CISOs or the CIOs are facing the issues. And then we get the SMEs, the subject matter experts from the industry who can actually help or answer those queries that how to go for that, how to solve those challenges or how to overcome those pitfalls. So today, in scenario, we have seen the data movement has been going everywhere. So it's not just the endpoint, it's IoT, it's network, it's cloud, and everywhere. So there's a need that we need to have a holistic threat detection approach. So that's where the XDR comes into play. We call it as extended detection and response. The topic today, which we have, is it's all about breaking down the siloed detections. We will be discussing the journey to extended detection and response. So this panel discussion we are hosting today in association with McAfee Enterprise, which is a pure play enterprise cybersecurity company positioned to solve enterprise customers' changing security needs with a world-class solution leading portfolio. McAfee Enterprise delivers on the need of modern business organizations and government around the world. Along with them, we have Inspira Enterprise India Limited, which is a leading digital transformation enterprise that combines bold thinking, path-breaking technology, and years of expertise to transfer business and organization around the world. Inspira is headquartered in Mumbai and has satellite office pan India, Sri Lanka, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, UAE, Africa, and US with a team of over 700 professionals. So to discuss this topic, we have invited our industry, peers or the guests. With I'll just name them and welcome them on this forum. So we have Agnidita Sarkar, who is CISO of PyCon. We have Amarjit Singh, Strategic Projects, Information Security, Persistent System. We have Arvind Sharma with us. He's going to talk or going to give the expertise in the XDR solution. He's an enterprise technology specialist for device security APAC at McAfee. We have Vijender Kumar Mishra, GM and CEO, CISO, Alchem Laboratories Limited. We also have joining us Om Ahuja, CISO and CTO, Inspira Enterprise India Limited. Along with them, we have Mukesh Kumar, VP and Head IT, Emphasis. So to take this discussion further, I will like to invite Gaurav Deshpande. He is a VP International Business, Inspira Enterprise India Limited. He will be taking this, setting the context and taking this discussion ahead with all our guests. So Gaurav, thanks for joining in and welcome all the panelists. Stage is over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Gaurav. I think it's a very nice setting. We've got a very nice panel, and the subject that we are discussing today is really exciting. So I think to kickstart things, the way we are looking at the entire threat landscape, okay, with the rapid digital transformation that we are doing, there is a huge amount of emphasis on detection and then response to threats. Okay, how do we reduce the time to detect threats? How do we reduce the time to respond to these threats? Okay, so the entire concept of detection and response, okay, becomes extremely important, and the way the security organizations are also evolving, okay, make it a really exciting space to be in. Okay, we are looking at centralized correlation engines. We are looking at predominantly endpoints which are in focus now, which are connecting to the centralized correlation engine, sending their logs to these correlation engines. There is good amount of intelligence and threat feeds that are coming into this correlation engine. You have your security orchestration, automation, which is sitting on top of the correlation engine where you are running your playbooks. Okay, and of course the all important concept of endpoint detect and respond, wherein we are trying to bring as much intelligence, as much threat perspective into the endpoint story, and how do we respond to the threats that get detected in that part of the system, which is the most crucial part. I think if our endpoints are secured, we feel much more secure than anything else. Okay. So having said this, I would want to kickstart the conversation. I would want to go across the panel. I would want all the panelists to quickly introduce what they do and present their views on the concept of detection, response, and the concept of XDR in general. And the way the conversation is structured for today evening is we have about 45 minutes wherein we are going to discuss various areas. We'll open it up with some general comments on how do we look at this particular area as individuals who are practicing cybersecurity for some time now, and then we go into some deeper concepts. Okay, try to peel the onion a bit, go into some deeper layers, trying to enhance our own understanding based on the collective experience that we have into this panel today. Okay, so that is how we are going to go about it, and then I understand that we open up the forum for some questions from the participants. Okay, we'll be more than glad to take up these questions and see how our collective intelligence and expertise that we have on this panel can help us gain more out of this discussion. Okay, so kicking things off, I would want to go to all my fellow panelists to understand their views, okay, on what they think about XDR as a concept, what they think about detection and response, and also a quick introduction about what they do in their respective organizations. Okay, so I mean, in the real world, I would have either gone on my left or my right. Okay, but here I'm looking at the top right, bottom left of the screen. Okay, so Amarjit ji, why don't we begin with you? Okay, do you want to give a quick insight? Thank you so much. I think you're on mute. You will need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry. So the alphabet is in favor or against, depends on how you do it. But thanks anyway. So to introduce myself, my name is Major General Amarjit. I'm a veteran. I was in the Corps of Signals of the Indian Army for 37 years. And for the last about 6 years, I've been with Persistent. I used to be the CIO for about 4 years, the CISO and the Chief Digital Officer working under me. And for about 1.5 years, now I'm in the strategic projects, building some custom solutions for our customers in the security area. So as far as XDR, I think you introduced, but there is interest here because what we've seen is, my input on these is that lots of solutions, point solutions, narrow solutions, CIOs, CISOs have to deal with a lot. And very interestingly, the orchestration and parts that you said, it's not really only a CIO problem. Securing the enterprise is not a CISO problem. It involves many other people. So that's where orchestration comes in. We found that there are multi-vendor problems in the enterprise. I think XDR is probably an approach trying to solve that, among other things. So yes, it's early in the XDR journey in the industry, but there's some good ideas coming out and we can discuss as well. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Mukesh, can we go ahead with you? Do you want to quickly give your thoughts?
Yeah, hi. I work as an head of IT risk and compliance. Take care of anything under the emphasis globally for the technology risk. From an XDR perspective or from a threat detection and response perspective, I think that's becoming more and more critical, how fast you look at the threat and you are able to detect it and take an action, especially now with the pandemic and hybrid working going to continue while it has been from last 1.5 year plus has been 90% plus of the organization have been working from home. With then hybrid coming, endpoints being outside your perimeter, data being moving into the multi-cloud environment, applications being there in cloud, SaaS services and everything. It is becoming more and more complex to understand, who is accessing your data, legitimate, unlegitimate, uh, from an managed device, unmanaged device, all those things, right? So detection and response is becoming more critical, more complex, and definitely solutions like XDR uh, we feel that it is a next step in whatever the stage you are as an organization you are, that takes you to the next step of your cybersecurity management.
Sure. Thank you so much for that, Mukesh. I understand that one of our panelists is not in a position to join in because he is into a medical situation, and Arvind is going to be about 5 minutes late into this discussion. Okay, but having said that, Arvind, do you want to give your views on early thoughts just to warm us up?
Hey, sure, Gaurav. Thanks everyone for joining today and having this discussion. Thanks to all the panelists for your views on XDR that you shared already. So let me introduce myself. My name is Arvind Sharma, and I handle the device security portfolio for McAfee Enterprise across APAC. So we focus on endpoint, EDR, and XDR, and so on. And we've seen the evolution of the need from endpoint security, right? The whole framework has changed drastically over the course of last 6 to 7 years, wherein we were used to look at the traditional AV as something that was good enough. Then came the years of the machine learning and AI, which eventually brought in the EDR solutions into the market. But we understand that it still was a siloed solution, right? So the detection was still focused on endpoint. So XDR brings the next level of evolution onto the endpoint events, endpoint alerts, and the whole detection goes to a different level where we look at the other threat vectors like cloud, web, data protection, and so on, right? So we add more context into that whole investigation and detection, which is the need of the hour, right? So that is what McAfee focus on, and that we totally understand. I've heard about some terms being used: the silo detection, point solutions, or need of orchestration. These are exactly what's the need of the hour. And today's discussion would be focused on this. I'm really looking forward to that discussion.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that, Arvind. Om, any opening thoughts from your side?
Thanks, ZORA. Welcome to all the panelists and the participants to this exciting discussion. I think today we'll touch upon and evolve also in terms of how a managed security service provider adds value to the XDR. How do we how it helps us to serve our customers better, and what level of orchestration and automation can be built up to support our customers' infrastructure. So this is something, when we talk about automation, we look at what is the ability and degree of automation. And when we also look at the larger engine of artificial intelligence being used in the analytics to give the whole XDR telemetrics points to add on to the normal analytics, what we do will also enhance our ability to serve the customers better, have more insights on what typically would have been missed by any analyst, or it takes time for any analyst to dig deeper, where an XDR helps to dig out things where there can be a anomaly when you look at a broader scale of a needle in the haystack kind of example. So a lot of these things will be discussed and debated upon. It would be also interesting to understand what are the customer expectations, what are the unique points, what are the challenges they face in at the level of maturity what they have, and see how we can solve or take these things ahead with them.
Sure. Thanks a lot for that, Om. And I think there's an interesting way I would want to look at it. I would want to go to Mukesh. I would want to check with you on what are your expectations from an XDR solution. Okay, so when you're looking at XDR, okay, as an area, okay, what do you want from the complete scope of the solution? You might want to unmute. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think the major one we would like to look at is there should not be any silos of applications or logs which are coming from different devices or endpoints or anything. It should be able to integrate each and every IT landscape which is being deployed for an organization. What I mean to say, there are times when there are challenges in getting the right logs or the logs which are coming from a specific device, whether you can understand those and correlate, right? So that's one. It should be able to cover the end-to-end IT landscape. Second, what we are looking at is how quickly you are able to correlate the logs which are coming from different devices, whether it's a networking, endpoint, applications, anywhere, and correlate and provide a meaningful outcome out of that, which a security operations center team can act on it, right? And that should be the starting point which we would like to. Obviously, on top of that, how you can build your automation layer, how you can integrate with your different systems to which can remediate even actions to a large extent by an automation engine, right? I think these are some of the basic expectations from the tool or from the product which you would like to any organization would like to deploy. One, not leaving out any type of logs or any type of devices, end-to-end coverage, detections to an extent that you are able to pinpoint where exactly you need to work on, and an automation and remediation engine to be built in.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those inputs. I think I have a question which is probably anti this question, and I would want to ask Amarjit about this. I think we can get some insights, and then I want to pass on this question to Arvind and Om also to get their inputs around this. Okay, while we understand from Mukesh on what is it that we want from an XDR. Okay, currently, what is it that the XDR is not giving us? Okay, based on the understanding that that we have as security practitioners, what, according to us, are the limitations of the current solutions which are available for us in the XDR space? I think that's an interesting question, and I would want to pass it around around the panel a bit.
Yes, and so Gaurav, just an update from us. Agni Sarkar has joined the panel.
Lovely. Yeah, welcome, Agni. I think after this question is done, I would just want to get you to introduce yourself and an opening comment from you. But let us get this question because it's an interesting thing that we would want to get into. So, what, according to you, is something that we are not getting from the XDR solution? Okay, what are the limitations of these solutions based on whatever we are observing as security practitioners as of now? You are still on mute, Amarjit. You might want to unmute.
Apologies.
Thank you.
I think so. Mukesh did cover one aspect fairly detailed, is visibility.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, Brian gave a developer's view into how the products are getting built and where we are as an industry. So the visibility part, actually, see, the number of devices, the variety is changing very rapidly. New OSs are coming. There are new types of applications. So the event generation itself is very, very, very dynamic and changing very fast. So, I mean, I could say, look, can you get Linux incident events? Can you get Windows events? How they are generated, right? So there are applications have to generate events before we can pick them up. And then we want to parse the information which is received. So visibility is fairly complex by itself and is getting complex. The more two things, one is the new types of applications are getting developed. The other is the way the applications are getting deployed. So if you're running, for example, serverless, the telemetry for serverless is not going to be the same as telemetry coming from your Linux machine. That's an example I'm giving. And so I think some of the traditional products are pretty good in the traditional platforms which you're trying to observe, but the new type of stuff, especially as you try and mix, IT, OT, and then we are going cloud native, the variety on the visibility side is changing too rapidly. I think some of the products are not there yet. I take the detection part here, which is important, which I think most of the discussion in XDR, to be honest, as I understand, is broadened out of EDR, and it's been largely endpoint driven till now. It's widening. So XDR is supposed to be far wider than EDR, right?
Yeah.
And the logic is that the detection, whether whichever models you adopt for understanding threat behavior, I think the entire industry is now focused on MITRE rather than any other models. But as far as describing is concerned, is okay. But if you look at the kill chain, the kill chain is either too short, that means there is an automatic kill chain which finishes off in half an hour and you have to respond within half an hour. But more important is sometimes, especially when we take the APTs and determined actors, the kill chain is lasting several months. Now the several months is not what traditional SIMs and other things were built for. It has many other problems of volume of data and velocity of data. But I think that point we are still early in the journey of saying, are our solutions wide enough? The definition of XDR is wide detection, but to be honest, I have that we are in an early journey over there. Then I'll quickly go over the other parts. So investigation, right? Response has to be very fast, is understood. We are all desiring automation, but before you can make up your mind, the level of assurance of detection may or may not be as good as we want. We don't think it is as good. One of the things XDR is supposed to do is improve on the false positive or noise in the security operations. I think, again, early days over there. On the investigation side, there are lots of tool sets. It's not expected that XDR should build those tool sets, but they should be able to integrate. And the response and remediation part, I think, very, very deep knowledge of the IT landscape. And as we said, right, visibility and response are pretty much similar. If the landscape is very wide, then how do you automate your response? Are you even allowed to respond? Have you had those discussions with the business leaders when you involve them in saying we are going to respond automatically, shut down parts of the network, shut down services? I don't think we are very sure over there. The last point I want to leave is, I think I heard this discussion, native XDR versus, open XDR versus hybrid XDR, whatever you want to call it. I think standards, because no product will ever do everything itself. There are lots of things coming out in detection in terms of how the rules are written, but also how responses are done. I think on the response side and automation, it's very, very early days. That's my assessment.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that really helps. Before we go to Agni for a quick introduction, Arvind, I would want a quick comment from you on this. Okay, so the shortcomings, or not shortcomings, I think that would be too harsh a word to use. Okay, but some of the missing components in XDR. Okay, and as Amarjit mentioned, we are still in the early days. I would also tend to be a bit biased with that kind of a view. So while we are early in the days, okay, what are your thoughts around that? The things which are missing in the XDR right now.
Understood. And I could not have put it better the way Mr. Amarjit has put. I think the most important thing, and Amarjit started the right way, telemetry, right? That's the most important part. And if you're looking at outcomes, we have to also look at input, and telemetry is the input. So that is what we should focus on. And when we look at the various architectures, Gartner had their own XDR architecture, ESG had a SOAPA architecture, right? These are architectures which are used by SecOps, right? Now, these architectures, when we look at, they start with sensors. And these sensors are the one which are giving us telemetry. A sensor can be endpoint, network, cloud, web, and so on, right? These are sensors which are giving us telemetry. So it's very important to understand what all telemetry do we need to ingest so as to have an XDR outcome, right? So that's the first thing, that's the most important thing. And that is where Amarjit also talked about open XDR and native XDR. So let me put that into a context, right? Now, when we look at native XDR vendors, and like McAfee as well, are the one which are closed system, right? Where the telemetry and the whole analytics and the front end, everything is owned via that vendor, right? So because that vendor knows about the telemetry they are generating, they can use that telemetry in generating the outcomes, right? So I'm going to come to outcomes second, right? So that's the native XDR. Whereas you have the open XDR, which is I'm more focused on the analytics part, the workflow part, and the orchestration part of it. But I'm not the guy who's generating telemetry. So Sensors is not part of my solution, which is the ZORA architecture of Gartner. Then the telemetry comes from third parties, and the ingestion, the analytics happens on that open XDR, right? So Amarjit said the right thing, that we should focus on what telemetry do we want for our investigation, and then the outcomes. And I was noting down what Amarjit was talking about. The outcomes is number one is our investigation, the capability to do investigation. That would depend on what kind of data sources are giving us that telemetry, right? Investigation can be our query capabilities, right? So when we're looking at open XDR or native XDR, we can look at these outcomes, right? Outcome number one, investigation. What are the capabilities from an investigation perspective? Are there gaps? Are they meeting our requirement or not, right? Can I query based on IOC? Can I query based on behavior-based detection? Can I query based on TTPs, right? These are the investigation-based requirements that the solution should have. That's the first outcome. The second outcome is from the incident management perspective. Okay, now I've done the investigation, I've done my threat hunting. What kind of incident management can I do? What kind of alert generation? What kind of notification? What kind of incident lifecycle management? Extracting those artifacts for further investigation. What kind of incident management I can do from my, whether it's native XDR or open XDR, right? So that's a second outcome that should be expected. Third, again, I'm just talk about response, right? The response requirements. Now that I've done my investigation, now I know what artifacts I should focus on. Then what kind of response can I take, right? Can I run a script on that endpoint? Can it be my custom script, right? I am a different organization. My scripts are already there. Can I leverage them, or do I have to create scripts specific to a particular vendor, right? So those kind of things are where the response comes into picture. How open is that platform to use those custom scripts which are based on my organizations? And finally, the fourth one would be around the automation and integration. Okay, one vendor cannot give all the solutions, right? So one vendor has done whatever they were supposed to do. They've given those outcomes from investigation, incident management, response perspective, but I am already using some of the solution. Can I extract that information, integrate that with my existing solutions so that my security operation is now much more mature? So these are the four things where we should focus on, and then evaluate whether it's native or open XDR, which is, again, if I summarize, number one would be investigation. What are the investigation capabilities? Number two would be incident management capabilities. Number three would be response capabilities. And number four would be integration and automation capabilities. So we take those four arms and do our own evaluation. I hope this answers your question.
Absolutely. I like the way you have bucketized it into the four areas. Okay. At this point, I would want to quickly get Agni into the conversation. Hi, Agni. Thank you for joining us. We would want you to quickly let us know a bit about yourself, a small introduction, and then I would want you to jump into this conversation around what is it that, according to you, is missing in the XDR solutions right now. What is it that you expect out of it? Okay, so if we can get a quick comment on this, please.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Okay,
so I have been working in the industry for more than 30 years, and I'm I'm not in the engineering part of the discussions like Amarjit Singh is, and thanks to you, I'm learning a lot. But I am a CISO and I work for Biocon. And previously, I have been a consultant for a long time. I have been on the product side. I have been, building solutions. I also contribute to standards on 3 ISO panels, one for security and privacy, the second for continuity and resilience, and the third for risk management, and also in Business Continuity Institute and Cloud Security Alliance. So that is a short introduction. And to get into what is missing in XDR, I think there are two views of the XDR, right? Or the topic that we're discussing. One view is how should it be built, which you guys are discussing right now. My view is not so much about how it should be built, but what should it do for me, right? Because that's where I see value. At the end of the day, there are many ways in which it could be built. For example, XDR obviously needs to have intelligence, right? So, so while I agree with all what Mukeshji said in terms of the scope of what XDR should do, I'm just going to qualify it a little more. So it needs to be on the endpoint. It needs to be on my servers. It needs to understand my applications. It needs to understand my network. The only part that I deviate from Mukeshji is that, logs are one part, but today's XDR and future XDR needs to be in real time, which means if a threat actor leaves a memory-only instance of malware, then XDR should be able to detect it, which means it should be able to understand event streaming. It needs to understand what's happening in real time, because that's what is going to make a difference, especially in highly highly threatened industries, if I were to call them, like finance. Now it is pharma, right, and many others, transportation, where cyber physical attacks can happen, and the difference between detecting an attack and responding to an attack can make a huge difference into what happens later on. The point that Amarjit Singh said, and I am thankful to him for putting it very clearly, is that are we sure you are even allowed to make the changes through automation that you think you could? So that's a question that enterprises need to worry about and think about. So broadly, the challenge that I feel that XDR is bringing on the table, and the promise is it is supposed to be high speed. But the problem is not all XDR are high speed. By high speed, I mean real time, right? So if I were to evaluate XDR number 1 with XDR number 2, my first parameter of evaluation would be speed. How fast? If I give both of them the same feed, which one comes out with what finding and how soon? The second factor, which is very, very important for clients, for enterprises, is it's not about detection, because at the end of the day, the detection means nothing to me, right? You find out that there was an attack. How does it matter? I mean, I know there is an attack, so how does it matter? Unless you are able to respond, because that's what DR is supposed to be, detect and respond. So the second factor, which is very, very important, is the ability to respond, which means, are you going to tell me that an attack has happened? Will I see a screen that says, sir, you've been attacked, and the next instant, and another screen that says that attack has been contained? Congratulations. That's the dream world. That's where we want to go, right? So the next factor is the response. So which means I need to know the speed of detection. I need to know the speed of response. The third thing that I believe is important for enterprises is the speed of response, the speed of detection. But the third thing is how much of that, what is being detected, is actually relevant, and how much of it is noise. So if it's very noisy, then I need to have a battery of security analysts who are going to look at every detection that is made and respond to it. which increases the problem, and it does not give me the promise of XDR, because XDR was designed specifically to reduce the overheads of security analysts, whether it is a MSSP or it is a enterprise who's using it. But the guy who's looking at a screen and trying to understand what he will do with that finding needs to get a more accurate finding. So, which means my next parameter for analysis is low noise. Lower the noise, better the product. Because, you know, when I was younger, we were told that the proof of a good software engineer is the smaller size of an executable file. Similarly, the proof of a good XDR is the lowest noise and the maximum impact. And that brings me to the fourth element, which is very, very important for the end users, right? So if you have a good detection, if you have good response, you have low noise, then comes those areas where the XDR really cannot take or is not authorized to take action, in which case there has to be manual intervention to address that risk. And in that case, it makes a huge difference when you are able to detect using indicators of attack versus indicators of compromise alone. I mean, of course, indicators of compromise have to be there, but the technologies, because at the end of the day, the XDR depends a lot on analytics, the kind of analytics engine it is sitting on, which means it has to be able to build indicators of attack over a period of time by doing two things. One, looking at what are indicators of attack in their experience. So if it's a malware company like McAfee, as Arvind comes from, then they have a history, they have a database, right? Similarly, others do, right? So if you're able to base your indicators of attack on that, then of course your efficacy of addressing the issue will be much higher. So whether you are doing it through automated response or you are doing it through manual response, the efficacy of your recommendation that says, even if it is manual, right? It says, we found this, we are not authorized to take this action, please take this action. And someone takes that action and the threat is contained. That is the efficacy. So that's the fourth parameter that I would look at. So for me, these four parameters are absolutely sacrosanct, and therefore it's going to go. Those are the 5 things I should be looking at XDR. Unfortunately, not all XDR, as you were talking, that not all products do everything, and I'm sure there will soon be someone who will do everything, because that's how the industry progresses, right? So you will have either an existing player building up to that pace, because there are many players who don't understand applications. There are many players who don't understand, all elements of what XDR should be doing. But soon there will be a player who will understand everything. For example, how does behavior-based anomaly detection integrate with the technologies that XDR uses? How does event streaming integrate with where your XDR components is sitting, your footprint, your sensors are sitting? Do you need a span port connection for understanding the actual traffic? How much is your detection based on network traffic analysis? How much is it based on endpoint behavior? How much is it based on entity behaviors? All these factors will make so much of an impact, and which means the 5th element that I will look at is the completeness of an XDR. I don't know if I answered your question, but
I think these are interesting points, and we would want to discuss them. We would want to check with the other guys also on this. Some of the areas are common. For example, reduction of noise, okay, or reduction of false positive is something that was brought out by the other guys also. Okay, I wanted to go to Mukesh with a question, but since Agni, you touched upon the interesting areas of analytics and manual intervention, I'm tempted to ask Om a question, and then I'll come back to you, Mukesh. Okay, Om, I think it is spelled out in as many words. Okay, areas where manual intervention is needed. Okay, and as a service provider, okay, according to you, how does a security operation center change once an XDR comes into picture? Okay, on both sides. One is as a security operations center for a MSSP from where you're providing services to your end customers, and a security operations center, which is an on-premise security operations center managed for a single customer. Okay, just your views around how the SOC changes once the XDR comes into the picture.
Yeah, thanks, Gaurav. And I think excellent insight given by Mr. Sarkar on what are the end customer expectations when he's evaluating an XDR. So as a service provider, what we broadly understand that XDR brings in more deeper telemetry correlations around users, hosts, networks, and applications. Basically, a deeper insights in terms of how correlated patterns goes in. Now, this is also important because a lot of our enterprises are connected to the cloud, and a lot of data and information is exchanged across. So some of these things are really important. Second piece in terms of also how it helps in terms of for an analyst is to have that ability because you have such a good engine which gives you an analysis. You have the team analyst not spending too much of time to get more deeper analysis, because this kind of deep analysis has already been provided. You need to match the patterns and validate certain things. So this has already been done. So what you need to do is more focus on what guidance and what steps are to be taken, how deeper that problem is, and how do you contain that part. One of the other objects when we look at it also, which Mr. Sarkar and Amarjit ji touched in was, the response piece. And I think immediately we can look at, if you understand these issues better, if you have a better understanding deeper, you can initiate automated containment and then work on the response. The challenge, the best part over here is when you are able to contain a particular problem, your wider business for a particular set of enterprise or customer is not affected. You are able to dig deeper into that problem and then clean that part and look at a similar pattern where you then automate the specific actions. So when a business has to decide whether this is the right way of, because we cannot automate everything on day one, you can automate the containerization of the problem and then give the analysis and take decisions from the business. So this is the best structured way in terms of how we work around. The major aspect of the discussion was what kind of collective intelligence I get in when I'm looking at the XDR, how fast it can detect the problem, so I would not say talk about fast detecting a problem. I would say what is the quality of telemetrics I'm getting in, and so that I have a lesser false positives. No XDR is real time. Okay, there is some analytics which is always involved, and even if you detect a problem, there will be some time for you to take a decision on what the telemetrics is throwing in through. So the quality of XDR is what kind of telemetrics it analyzes, what kind of parameters it shares for you to take a structured decision, and the response which you can guide. Because ultimately, on the technical side, you have the analyst who understand what is the level of issue, what is the criticality, and his ability to communicate the depth of the problem to the decision makers is very important, so that and what actions and why these actions are necessary. When you communicate this thing very well, it really helps. So you have good amount of time to analyze and respond. This is what XDR gives in, and this is what it really look at it. And the fourth point which I would like to touch upon is, as you contain, there are certain structured workflows we are trying to solve at the technology level where you try to automate. But there are certain compliance, certain legal workflows related structured workflows which we need to follow there are certain issues where certain kind of attacks or impacts requires a regulatory preview where you need to record, where you need to respond for them. So this kind of structured workflow helps collectively for the team to analyze and then to respond. So I would say an XDR gives you a comprehensive insights where a deeper analytics, a deeper collective intelligence plus in-depth environmental telemetry of a particular environment in which operates, a deeper insight for you to take better decisions, have an informed process of what is the depth and problem of the issue, and have a response coming in a structured manner. We love automation, but none of our decision peers would allow that level of automation to come in. But dirty questions, if I'm serving if I'm serving Amarjit ji or if I'm serving Sarkar ji, would be, tell me what is the problem, how dirty is the problem, what steps I need to take in terms of coming out of this problem, what is the business impact. If I'm able to communicate, analyze this faster and communicate this thing faster, the decision making is faster, and then we can solve the problems or work towards solving this problem in a much faster. So I have that time lapse to respond to things in a structured manner. So when we look at, as an analyst, I'm responding because if Mr. Amarjit ji and Mr. Sarkar are the CISOs of the organization, then this is what they expect in terms of the response coming in. And this is where I feel an XDR really adds a lot of value.
Sure. Thanks for that, Dom. I think it's a very nice perspective to get in from the guys who are going to manage the solution at the end of the day. Okay, and look at the screens and do the monitoring and respond to the threats. I think that is interesting. I would want to go to Mukesh with one question. In fact, I've got two interesting areas that I would want to get some views on. But before I do that, Gaurav, I would just want to do a time check with you. Where are we? Because I see some questions being asked in the chat window also. Okay, so can you just give me an idea on the time check? How much time do we have before we open the forum for?
I think you can take 6-7 minutes more, and
okay,
then we can have the audience questions. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I think that is good enough time. I would want to touch upon two interesting areas. One area is AI and ML. Okay, and what is the expectation around XDR when it comes to this? Because everyone likes to talk about it. I think we are adding three buzzwords together: AI, ML, and XDR. Okay, so I would want to get some views first from Mukesh and then from Amarjit ji. I would want to get some insights into what your views are around AI and ML integrated with XDR, and then I would want to open another layer, okay, which is around OT. So first, I would want to get some views around AI and ML. Mukesh, would you want to put some thoughts into it?
Yeah, before I touch on this particular, just to clarify, when I was talking about an automation where is needed, we are not talking about an automation which is without a decision making, right? Automation is once a decision is made, how much time is your IT team going to take to put that particular solution into all the devices wherever this has to be done. And this is coming because I have been managing the IT infrastructure for last 20 plus years. And we know the kind of IOCs which comes from SOC team and how much time these people take. And if that is the time it is taking to fix that identified threat, you're defeating the whole purpose of identifying fast, right? And that is where I was talking about the automation and not without a decision making. I think from an AI ML, I feel this is a too much abused word nowadays in every conversation of an IT. Unless you don't talk about AI ML, it feels like you are not in this industry at all, right? What we are trying to do is in XDR, whatever we are talking about is identifying the threat, the responses. That is a part of the AI which is already doing, right? Because you're not doing it on manually, right? That is what is expected out of it. The learning of the behavior, the logs telemetry which is coming, what is coming as an external feed, you taking decisions. These are all AI ML only, right? There is nothing beyond this you are expecting an AI ML to do. So if an XDR is not doing this kind of responses, it's mean you don't have an AI ML engine working. Then what output are you going to do? Then this is all manual, right? So that's the view I carry. XDR will not survive if you don't have the AI ML engine working, which is looking at the telemetrics, behavior, analytics, and everything, and giving you the final feed on which you are going to work on, right?
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I would want to quickly go to Amarjit ji to get your views around this.
So, see, I somewhat vary from what Mukesh said, actually.
Mhm.
Some of it is actually absolutely at the opposite end of what he said. So I'm just saying, see what is happening are traditional SIMs and all these things. Let's separate for a moment, firstly, AI and ML, right? So let's not talk of artificial general intelligence where it doesn't exist anywhere practically. A lot of other artificial intelligence in terms of deep learning and certain models, reinforcement learning, agent-based agents, behaving in a particular manner. So if you start putting agents, I'm willing to call it AI. But bulk of the contribution right now coming in cybersecurity, as much to XDR, not to say it doesn't come to EDR or antivirus or everywhere. It's actually machine learning. And sometimes machine learning people get annoyed, and I do work in this area, but it's actually very, very advanced stages of statistics that we do in machine learning. Most of the machine learning is very advanced stages of statistics. And sometimes the advantages with less preparation of data than what a statistical model generally requires. So machine learning actually allows us to feed a lot of data. What I would say is, look, for example, there is no detection product in the market, and I can say with great confidence, unless the McAfee people beat me down, is we all have detection engineering teams sitting at the rear, and all the CISOs and their SecOps teams are constantly telling the product team, look, you never found this, you never found this. And always we have algorithmic approaches, the way rules are written. Fortunately, the industry is collaborating a lot in writing rules now. So people are already sharing detection rules. The trick here is the platform should be able to get rules that all sorts of people are writing all over the world and keep putting into the platform faster than I can put those rules manually. The machine learning part is absolutely important in what Agnideepa said is, can you tell me quickly? So the problem with a rule-driven engine is the amount of data. If I told you, so actually it works in threat hunting, where you're saying, I've got 6 months of data and tell me what happened. Sometimes we call it forensics as well. But in detection engineering, when I have to do it in real time, what we require is to compress the data to take what is relevant to making a detection. Machine learning steps, I think some of us are already aware, you take and then you do something that we call feature engineering, which requires domain knowledge. And then you get dimensionality reduction. You reduce the data to the very essentials that are required to making a decision, which a traditional threat hunting platform will write a SQL query or a KQL query if you're using an elastic-based SIM. And those queries take long time if you have to throw it at 6 months worth of data. The hope, and then we're all working, and there is various types of machine learning models, is that the data that we have to put into the model is prepared well. So there is tremendous amount of data preparation, data pipelining work happening in machine learning, in cybersecurity, and which is very distinct from how typical rules, whether you take rules, people were actually, it used to be called use cases in a SIM. People used to be, companies would hide their use cases, but now everybody knows the use cases since evaluations and all have become public. People are publishing rules, and for example, you have Sigma rules, and there are means of taking Sigma rules and putting it in your platform. So detection engineering is a live process. Machine learning is a live process. The biggest thing that is happening is reduce the data into a decision model. That's where machine learning is right now working very effectively. Do we have the rest of the AI that can I have autonomous systems? I think those are early days, and a lot of those points are not in areas like XDR, but the response side, can I have autonomous response? But as Agnidipta said, and I used to be the CIO and CISO, look, if revenue is at stake, 20 people have to take a call before you are allowed to shut down a system. So yes, that sort of artificial intelligence is going to take much more time, but the machine learning is pretty much there in reducing the scale of the problem from algorithmic to what, is a desire to give a quick answer with much more data. I'll leave it at
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Arvind, I would want a quick comment from you on the role of AI ML in threat detection to reduce false positive. A quick word because we are slightly short on time.
I understand. So first of all, let me say that the outcomes that Mr. Agnidipta was asking for, we can't achieve that unless and until we have AI and ML, right? So if you're looking at speed, we're looking at better response, lesser false positive, better efficacy. We can't achieve that unless and until there is ML and AI. It is all respect to the security analysts that we keep on hiring, but we still can't have that kind of skill set that this can be achieved manually. So AI and ML is required, right? That's the first point. The second point, and the engineer in me would resonate more with Mr. Amarjeet ji, is that yes, we need a machine learning, but which machine is learning, right? So now when we talk about two different solutions, we have a set of customers who have everything on-prem because of the guidelines, regulations, they can't go on cloud, then the machine learning capability is limited. Why? Because we can't leverage the strength of cloud. But then we got those set of customers who can go to cloud, where the whole telemeter data can be taken, created a much more refined data set, and then there can be a machine learning on top of that, right? So it depends on how open you are to those machine learning capabilities, right? And we totally understand that the compliances, the guidelines and all that would restrict certain organizations to move to cloud. But if that cloud is something that is acceptable, I think most of the vendors today in the market are that mature that they understand that what level of machine learning capabilities can be provided. Deep learning or neural networks, it is something that we all need, but we can't do that on the endpoints where the business is running, right? We need that offline somewhere, where we can use resources and run those algorithms, run those analysis, and understand what malware we want to analyze, right? So it depends on where machine learning is happening. If cloud is acceptable, I think that gives a lot of strength to vendors like us to perform much better with much better efficacy and speed. I think that would be the answer.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for that, Arvind. I would want to just touch upon briefly on one topic. I think any security related conversation today is incomplete if we are not talking about industrial controls. Okay, so I would want to get quick views from Agni on what are the features that, I mean, since you come from the pharma industry, what are the features that that you would want to look at from an XDR when it comes to getting more comfort for the industrial control for the IT OT devices. Okay, and just a quick comment from any of the other panelists on this, and then we can go back to Gaurav and open it up for the audience questions. So Agni, on to you.
So, in my view, it is too premature a question to answer because XDR is still struggling with IT. Industrial control systems have their own ways of doing things. The only place that I think it can play a role today is at the point where IT and OT are merging and get some telemetry from there and do something about it. But honestly speaking, I don't think XDR is even anywhere close to understanding how ICS actually works. So, I mean, in my limited knowledge, XDR, I mean, industrial control systems are varied, whether it is IT, OT, whether it is IoT, OT, or IIoT. The communications that happen between these devices is on a protocol that is completely different. So I would say that at this point in time, I don't see much value of XDR happening in industrial control system security. I would rather that, because XDR, again, this is my personal view, and probably Amarjit Singh agrees with me, that XDR is still in the evolution stage. And, whatever Arvind said that you need to be on the cloud, I sort of agree with him, then don't agree with him, because I'm sure sooner or later there will be a technology which will allow us to create footprints for all the machine learning in data collection that you're doing on premises. Because let's face one thing, while cloud is the most exciting thing happening right now, not all enterprises will ever move to cloud. And having said that, there will be enterprises that will be born on premises, just like enterprises are being born on the cloud. Yes, being on the cloud gives a lot of value, but there are other things, and I'm not talking about regulations. There are other reasons why you need to be on-prem. Let's face it, you can't take a machine and put it on the cloud. That machine needs to be on premises. You can't take a pipeline and put it on the cloud, right? The pipeline needs to be on premises. So therefore, the fastest way to respond to anything, we have to evolve a mechanism where we are able to merge what we can do with and from the cloud with what we can do with and from on premises. That's the future. So in short, industrial control systems and XDR, not a very good marriage as yet.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Anyone else has any views on that?
Let me add to what Agni said. Actually, it's complementary again, but sometimes I'll differ with him. So XDR is extremely valuable. So in the IT side, right? So if you looked at the IT structure, and if you looked at, he's the guy who works in ISO areas, but if you looked at 62443, right, that's a base standard for everything. So there are 3 layers which are actually only IT. So, and actually the IT is going down, right? So layer 0 is a device or PLC or something, and layer 1s are, HMIs and other things. But if you start from the top, right? So layer 4 is already an industrial DMZ, which is purely IT. If you go down to an operations DMZ, where your data from down below in the historians and all.
That's what I was saying. In between, somewhere in layer 3, XDR does have a role.
Absolutely. No, I'm agreeing with you there. But what I was saying is, look, that's why XDR is valuable. Why is it valuable? Because where are the threats coming from into the OT are actually coming from the supply chain. Supply chain, if you're opening up your layer 1 and 2 networks, then, there's some crazy CISOs may be at work there, but mostly, it's all piped from layers 4 and 3. The differentiation we are requiring is, and there is AI, ML angle and all those things, like there is the concept of federation that we are using now. So if the threat is going to come via layer 4 and layer 3, I think XDR is extremely valuable in securing.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. But now this models that we have, let's say Arvind should tell us for detection, they will be requiring a different kind of telemetry, which is coming from down below and not coming from elsewhere. And the traffic is different. You have Modbus, you have, S7, S5, and hundreds of protocols down there. You have field buses. What will happen is these models will get trained differently. So the models, if you're using machine learning in IT, will be trained with different data. If you take it and put it in layer 3 or layer 4 on the OT side, they'll be trained with different data. And
even layer 2. Even layer 2, they will be trained with different data. And yes, I think that is why I said it is futuristic.
So, but yes, so I think Arvind is the best guy to tell us, are they building the OT versions of their XDR platforms, which have data trained, the models trained on a different set of data altogether. So that's what.
That's a very valid question. And my very quick and simple answer would be that today, all the EDRs that are there in the market, because they are eventually, the solutions which are sending the telemeter to the XDR, are predominantly focused on MITRE attack framework. And those techniques are predominantly OS specific, right? What all kind of techniques can be run or tactics can be run on that operating system on which some attack is happening. So I understand the data coming from the pipeline might be different, but today the sensors, the kind of telemetry that they're trying to capture on the endpoint are predominantly on the OS side. So I understand that the whole EDR might not be relevant for the entire OT setup, but there are certain portions of the setup where it will be an advantage. You could put a EDR sensor on a SCADA server, on an engineering workstation, on an operating station, right? Some servers in the DMZ. Those are kind of the servers where, and we've seen some of the attacks that have happened lately are predominantly targeting these systems, right? If this is something that we can probably put an EDR on and get that telemetry, I think that is where we would benefit. So I would not say we got 100% answer, but we got a fair percentage of answer via the EDR solutions today in the market. But
what is promising, MITRE has built a whole framework for industrial control systems now. That's the promising part.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. I think see, we have just cracked the service, and now is the time when it is started to get exciting, this conversation here. But given that we are at about 5:10 now, I would want to go back to Gaurav Batra. Gaurav, a time check. I think we have shot about 10 minutes over what we had scheduled for. Okay, how do you want to take it? Do you want to open it up for questions from the audience?
Yeah, I think, yeah, if with the due permission of all the panelists, if we can spend some 5-10 minutes. I'm seeing some interesting questions coming in the chat window, and frankly, what a discussion it was so far. I'm just glued and listening the whole this conversation. Somewhere a bit heated, somewhere it's calm, and to the point. So yeah, but yeah. So just for everyone on the the Zoom call. So what that we are going to do is right now I'm going to take the questions from the audience. If you want to raise your hand, you can do, or else I'm going to read the questions which are already in the chat box. And also with that, we are giving up for the others who have no questions or not, putting in there. So please do fill the feedback form. We are giving it right now. Once you fill that, you will be getting your certificate, and also the Wheel of Fortune, as we promised, some Alexas, right? So that will be done from that feedback form. So even the panelists can fill that, and we are lucky to get Alexas today. Just on that part. So yeah, the very first question I will take it from Abhishek Mathur, which says, any of the panelists here believe that gradually XDR will replace threat intelligence or SIM or SOAR or other SOC technologies? Any one of you can take. So do you think that's going to happen?
Okay, I will take that. So, in my view, you're talking about the same thing, because an XDR to work properly needs threat intelligence. And then XDR needs to integrate with the telemetry, needs to integrate its telemetry with an SIEM, because an SIEM is a different functionality. Or you can do away with your SIEM and you can still work with XDR if your focus is that. Many regulated industries still will need an SIEM and an XDR. And the XDR will need to understand how SIEM and how SOAR technologies are working with each other. The purpose of the XDR is completely different from the purpose of the SIM or the SOAR, etc. Primarily because while SIM can also integrate these technologies, what SIM cannot really do is look at it from an indicators of attack perspective and act on it. That's more an XDR and automated response capability. I hope I answered.
I hope maybe Abhishek, if you have other views, please raise your hand. And also this Michael has another question, which is for you, Mr. Sarkar, only. So it said he says that you have touched upon the customer expectations. What about the implementation skill for integration of an XDR solution? Beyond the ADR's own agent, it does not play well with your existing security or infra solution. It will be missing a lot of inputs from your existing investments.
The nightmare that every CISO has is the fact that the service provider does not have skills. So there is an so the expectation of technical skills is given, There is no running away from that. If you don't have the skills to integrate the XDR with your current telemetry, it makes no point in buying that solution. Absolutely none, because you'll only end up creating more havoc than benefits. So security capability, and I'm sorry, I should have probably included that as my 6th component, but you are right. There is an element of comparability when you're buying a solution or a service, is the ability of whoever is coming to implement it. That's absolutely essential.
I think just to add to that, I think that's a very important area. A lot of organizations have bad experience with technologies because they are not implemented the right way. Okay, and that is where we have seen in the past that we get a feedback saying that a particular solution is not good, it has not got these kind of features. I think it comes down to the service provider who is implementing the solution and the kind of skill sets which are available with the service provider to integrate those solutions. Okay, and the more specialized we are getting with some of these solutions, the kind of trainings and certifications that the engineers are going through along with the OEMs and along with the service providers also, to enhance their own skills for integration and implementation become really important. Just to add my views.
Sure. Thanks. Maybe Arvind, if you want to add, on that those skill set. And before that, I will add one more question additional to that for you, which you can answer together. Maybe the one is, will XDR solution provide cross-stack visibility with an ability to ingest multiple data sources along with right context and correlation across different layers? So, maybe from the skill set perspective as well as the correlation at different layers, if you can also add this question which has come in by Abhishek.
Perfect. So I'll answer both from a skill set perspective. So
yes, yeah.
Skill set requirement for a native XDR would be on the investigation and response side, right? But our skill set requirement for an open XDR would start from the initial integration side. Right. So when we look at a native XDR, that consumption of telemetry data and doing that analytics and everything is done by the vendor who's providing the native XDR, right? Because it's their telemetry, they are storing in the cloud or on-prem or wherever, and they're doing the analytics automatically based on whether the alert is generated from an endpoint or a web gateway or IPS or so on, right? So depending on which sensor it's coming from, they are the guys who are initiating the investigation, initiating the incident life cycle automatically, and giving the security analyst a view of the output of that threat. That's how native XDR starts. Whereas the open XDR is where you have to integrate with your existing infra. So your skill set would be at an API level. What kind of APIs are open via the existing vendors? Not all vendors are very open by nature, right? So what kind of APIs are they sharing? Is that enough? Is that what you're expecting? Do you want to ingest more data from an existing solution, right? So XDR solution will depend on the capability of your existing solution also. So your skill set requirement will start from there, right? So it depends on what you're looking at. So if you're looking at so keeping those two things aside, right? The initial skill set requirement, then comes the whole operational side of it, right? So once that integration is done, API or native XDR, either way is out, then once you've got the output of the incident, now, is that high alert really a high alert, right? Or you're like, okay, this is script which runs in my operation all the time, I'm okay with it. That kind of maturity in the operation is also required. Right? This would come from both the sides. This cannot come alone from the person who's running the tool. That is where the organization needs to work hand in hand and help maturing that whole operation, right? So yes, there are skill set requirement at each and every stage of the operation, whether it's investigation, whether it's incident management, whether it's automation, whether it's remediation. There is a skill set requirement. A lot of them can be in-house, because a lot of organizations, come what may, are basically have some application that they've developed. So they would have some kind of skill set around APIs. They might not need, those kind of skill set from somebody outside, right, from a third party. But the other skill set from a security operation perspective is where they can outsource and they can use third parties to help them have a much more mature response. I hope that provides the answer.
Gaurav, you're
Even
good.
I hope so. Yeah. I said even I hope so. That it's satisfactory level. Okay. So I think I will take just one last question quickly. That's from Prashant. I feel all organization has already spent a lot on the SOC, so XDR solution to think on how to interoperate and enhance existing SOC technologies and process. I think that's okay. It's a how to. Okay. How to interoperate and enhance existing SOAP technologies and process with this XDR solution. Maybe Arvind, if you can put some a phase-wise integration, best guidelines or something like that. Maybe that's the question here.
I'll probably give first 30 seconds of answer, and then everybody else can add on. As I said, right, SOC, the SIM-based SOC architecture was predominantly on logs, predominantly on alerts. What we've seen from the sensors or devices who are sending that to the SIM solution, and then we are doing the reactive work. But now when we're looking at XDR, it is about taking the analytic output as well, right? So now that the various solutions are doing their own analysis, they are giving you analytic output. How do we consume that? So you need that level of integration, the API level integration, the webhook level integrations. Those are the kind of integration you would need to absorb the analytic output of various different solutions. Today we're talking about XDR. Tomorrow there can be NDR, right? That's another terminology coming out in the market. But then we need to consume those output as well, and then look at the analytical level rather than the log level. The log is done by the SIM. They are doing the correlation, they're doing the normalization, they're doing the basic correlation at a log level, which is very, very reactive. The proactive way would be on the analytical output of all the devices, all the sensors, and then maturing the whole security operation. That's my first 30-second answer.
Maybe one thing you have mentioned about the different names. So that's an important question, which I will like to read definitely. I don't know how I skipped that. Will XDR compete with EDR and MDR?
I hope so. Let me put it that way. Why? Because
let me take this.
Please.
Yeah, Arvind, so let me take this. So that question is actually two questions. There's no comparison between the EDR and the MDR. I think we just discussed the MDR part here.
I think we lost the connection or something. Yeah.
If you have a strong L3 support from the vendor, hello, can you hear me? So the MDR, can you hear me? No. Seems like
no, we can hear you, but we lost you for about 30 seconds.
Yeah, in between we can. Yeah.
So there was a phone ringing on the same. Not only interested in doing detection, but also response. You have to trust those vendors. Those vendors have to be really good. They have to understand your systems. They have to have a good understanding of your IT. So this is not of deploying the XDR. It is by operating the XDR. So actually, if you don't have very strong teams, you still require good MDR players to assist you in operating your XDR or EDR or NDR. NDR is pretty much live and thing. The other point I wanted to bring in is what Arvind was saying is, look, the NDR guys, then again, you're not going to shut off everything. To imagine that XDR will do everything in life is just, I mean, even though Arvind is here, I'm saying no XDR will ever do everything, right? So there are always going to be specialized products. No CISO is willing to throw them out ever. So there are always going to be about 20, 30 products. What has happened is detections by the products used to be much less, and SIMs used to do most of the detection. Now lots of products do their own detections as well. So, you require that MDR guys to come and work with you to, whether you call it the MDR guys also doing professional services or deploying the XDR, but operating the XDR is not trivial. It's not an autonomous system yet. It may become. So MDR is going nowhere actually. And the EDR is actually okay. I mean, from EDR, if we want to XDR, it's become broader. But to imagine that endpoint products will vanish is not true. So, I mean, I just leave it to that. Maybe there are niche products. A DLP product is a good DLP product, which the EDR doesn't do. So, I mean, EDR may aspire to say, I will do some kind of DLP, but if a good DLP is a good DLP, and you may not be able to throw it. So will the endpoint products vanish? No. Can you do away with MDR? No. That's the answer, in short.
That's absolutely correct. And you rightly said, right? All the sensors will stay there, whether it's EDR, whether it's web, whether it's the firewall or the data protection, all the sensors would stay there. They will all feed into XDR. That would be the architecture.
Okay, I think that's so many. So meanwhile, we have taken all the questions. So Pranay, be ready with the wheel of the fortune, and I will request all of the guests here to take 30 seconds. I think for 5 of you, so 2.5 minutes. Then Gaurav, you can conclude that, and then we will run the wheel of fortune. And for the audience who is here, guys, stay on. At 5:30, we have another interesting session on cybersecurity and logistics. So be on this bridge. Yeah. So maybe Agni-Dipta sir, if you want to go first, then Amarjit, Arvind, and then Gaurav, you can conclude. Mukesh, I don't see if you have switched on your, and Om as well, right? Yeah. So you can conclude this, and we can. Yeah.
So I think XDR is an exciting journey, but I don't think that XDR is a fully developed product yet. And if I had the funds to buy an XDR, I would really measure it up against what value it will bring on the table for me. And as Amarjit Singh said, try and find if there is an MDR program available, because if I'm able to get XDR as a service for an end user company, that makes a lot of sense. For a service providing company, the XDR is a very good addition to the arsenal that service providing company has, because it wants to add value to what it is trying to do for the customer. So it depends on what part of the spectrum you are, but I think XDR is exciting, and it will influence how security products, it will even influence how security products are being built, because I recently heard that someone is building a firewall called a dark firewall, where the firewall will simply not respond to a query. So, you can't ping that firewall, you can't find it, you're just going to see a black hole. So, and that is coming up because it is designed to provide all that intelligence. Tools will be built, and as Arvind was saying, native XDR, there I believe that the integration that OEMs will have with various telemetry points is only going to increase. I'm aware that different companies have their own ecosystem, and so I believe the future belongs to all the vendors working with each other and providing telemetry to each other, because only if you win together is when we all will win, the subscriber. So the only part that, again, I sort of agree with Amarjit Singh and I don't agree with him is the fact that there will be 20 different vendors in the future. I'm hoping there will not be 20.
Okay, fair enough. Great remarks. Maybe Gaurav, from whom you want to conclude, maybe Amarjit or Mukesh. Yeah. Then
so I think we have not heard from Mukesh for a few minutes now. So Mukesh, can you go in, please?
I think I echo the inputs from Agni. XDR is an exciting journey, definitely, and I feel that it is an gradual progress from where you are in your response and threat identification and response. Wherever you are, this is the next level where you can reach. How best the implementation and the products are going to be, I think that's the success criteria will define, right? How well you can implement. Maybe best of the product not implemented doesn't give you any result, right? So that will be the key for an XDR success in any organization. But I think it's it's a next journey, next step into your response and threat management.
Sure. Arvind, any views from you, and then we'll have some closing remarks from Amarjit.
So, and I would again start with what Mr. Agni-Dipta said. It's a journey, right? It is a journey. It is not a single product. It's not a single check mark that we buy a X solution and then we're done with it. It's a journey. But how do we start the journey? We know that our XDR would be as mature as the telemetry data it's getting, right? So telemetry data, irrespective of which architecture we're looking at, the SWAP architecture or the others, right? It depends on the telemetry data. So we can start with how mature are those sensors that we currently have: the data protection, the cloud, the web, the network, the endpoint. How mature are they? What is the outcome? What are the analytical outcomes of these solutions? Because if they are mature, then only they can feed that mature outputs into XDR, and then only XDR output can be fast, can have a higher efficacy, can help you reduce mean time to investigate, right? So we can start our journey with how mature our sensors are, the endpoints network, and so on, how mature they are, and what is the level of analytics, and are they open? Are they open to share that over an API and so on, right? So they should be open up to share whether we go with native XDR or open XDR. The output of that should be shareable with the third parties. That's how we start our journey. But yes, it's a journey. Everybody has to work together, understand what are the possible outcomes. We can expect XDR to work and give us everything, right? It will not. Let's have a very mature discussion about what are the realistic outcomes that we can get. We will not achieve automation everywhere, right? So we start with our journey from a sensor perspective and move towards the output which are possible from the XDR solution.
Thanks for that, Arvind. Amarjit ji, any closing points?
I just want to present it slightly differently. There's nothing different here, but instead of products, I think XDR is a name. You can change it to any other thing, but the journey is to platforms for cybersecurity. So I want to give you an analogy, for example, to an enterprise ERP. And again, we'll have a little bit of push and pull here. There have been, ERPs, and yet none of the business solution providers vanished. ERPs wanted to do everything. XDR also wants to do everything. It probably do many things. But the point is, this shows the journey of the industry from saying individual products to saying, let's go platform. And XDR actually is a platform which allows you to aggregate many things, and it becomes an aggregator. Now it's an approach of a vendor. You want to be an Apple for cybersecurity, which means your platform is very tightly integrated, which Arvind and all are trying to do, vertically integrated. Or you want to be like Android or something. Your platform is very open for people to go there. But the XDR journey is the platform journey of cybersecurity. And yes, there will be lots of people plugging in things. You'll have guys doing OT for you. You will have app stores in XDR. I think people already are building, those who are building open XDR, they are building their app stores already. So I think that's the summary I would want to say.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I think we've had an exciting conversation. Okay. And I think the way the conversation has happened, we all agree that we are still into the early days of XDR. Okay. And it's a journey. Okay. And it is not a siloed solution that we are looking at. Okay. There are multiple things that will come into it as we go ahead. And we just, I hope that it matures very well, and it provides all the benefits that we are looking at out of it. Okay, or at least provides a platform wherein we can integrate various other solutions that help in making it much more integrated. Okay, and provide us all the use cases that we would want to look at from it.